Panthers Nation, what up, dude? It's Aaron Duncan here, bringing you another video brought to you by Necessary Bluntness Sports Talk. It is Monday, so of course, we have Panthers news today. There's been a lot of stuff that happened over the weekend since the Panthers' last game, so we have a lot of topics to cover. Sorry, I can't get my words straight. It is Monday, like I said. But nevertheless, before I get into everything, let me introduce myself. My name is Aaron Duncan once again. Necessary Bluntness, I do recap and analysis of the Carolina Panthers, so if you want to see more videos, hit the subscribe button down below and the bell icon. That's going to make sure you get a notification every time I drop a video, because I got film breakdowns. I got news videos like this. I got live streams. I got reaction for the game. I got previews for the game. So I got you covered pretty much every day of the week that ends in Y. I'm dropping Panthers content. Don't let that go over your head. So make sure you subscribe. But of course, I like to get you guys' thoughts. So after every topic, I'm going to ask you guys' thoughts. Let's chop it up down below in the comments. I want to get your honest thoughts. But the first piece of news is monumental ground shaking news. Like, I didn't see this coming out of anywhere, because like the team announced today that Baker Mayfield has officially been named the starter for week 1 against Cleveland. Okay, yes, I'm being facetious. We knew this. This is the biggest news that isn't news, that everybody saw coming a mile away. You don't trade for a guy like Baker Mayfield, even if you only gave up a 5th-round pick and paying him $5 million. You don't make a trade like that this late in the offseason without starting him. But nevertheless, I feel like he earned the job anyway, not just off of the cachet that he's had when the success in Cleveland, or how bad Darnold had been for us last year. But you could kind of see, as he began to pick up the offense, he began to separate himself, and Sam tried to be steady Teddy, whatever, for lack of better words. But sometimes you got to be able to color outside the lines a little bit, take those chances, be able to push the ball down the field. And Baker Mayfield showed that he has the moxie, the leadership, the charisma, pretty much everything that they're going to be looking for in a leader and a guy that you want under center. And hopefully it'll help solve our problems, at least for this year, when it comes to the quarterback position. But Matt Rhule actually talked about the competition today and said that the professionalism that Baker and Sam played with in this competition really trickled down to the rest of the team, because there's other competitions on this roster. But if you see the most important position on the field at the quarterback position, not being cutthroat, not having any animosity, actually being friends and cool and helping each other out and cheering for each other, it makes other competitions feel like, oh, I mean, we are still teammates. It is about winning at the end of the day. And yes, you want to breed competition, but you don't want any animosity for anybody that doesn't quite become the starter or don't get the playing time that they thought they deserved. So I kind of agree with Matt Rhule says there, man. And hopefully it carries over to the season, because all this good, nice talk in the preseason means nothing if it doesn't amount to wins. And hopefully Baker gives us a better chance to win than Sam Darnold did last year. Hopefully he can right this ship and get things going, and hopefully the Panthers can make some type of competitive push, because the NFC is not that heavy this year. Playoffs, not impossible. Baker Mayfield was in his press conference. He didn't want to guarantee playoffs, but he said he's been in worse situations, like a team that won one game in 2 seasons and was able to turn things around. So he has he doesn't really take any bearing into what happened in the past.
You know, we're not going to put any expectations or things like that looking in the future. We're going to try and handle it 1 week at a time. Speaking from my own experience, I've stepped into situations where they've won 1 game in 2 seasons prior to that. So I'm not really worried about what's happened previously. I always try and focus in the moment and try and get the best out of the guys around me, and try and push people to be their best, because it's never about the last play. The most important one's always the next one. That goes for the same way you think about records in years prior.
Lots of good words from Sir Baker Mayfield, our starting quarterback. We'll be paying attention to how things shake out going forward. But that also brought into the light for the last preseason game. The next topic that we're going to talk about is the game against the Bills at home. Matt Rhule disclosed that he expects Baker Mayfield, the starting quarterback, to play at least the first quarter and maybe some into the second. That tells me that the rest of the starters will probably likely do the same. So this is exciting, because this is the dress rehearsal. After Baker and Sam, neither one of those guys played in the second preseason game, a lot of fans were wondering what was going on. Rhule took the strategy of the joint practices being very heavy and intensive and decided to go with the 3s and the 4s. Fair enough. The starting game is that new dress rehearsal. A lot of different coaches take different approaches. Some people are surprised they didn't play in the second game, but I don't think there's anything kind of concrete for how to approach having 3 preseason games. When it was 4 preseason games in prior years, the third game was always a dress rehearsal, and the fourth game was kind of you played your backups to see who was going to make that final roster spot. The dynamics change a little bit more now because of the timing of cuts that have to be made, the amount of cuts that have to be made, and also, like I said, that one preseason game that's gone. You don't want to bench them for that final preseason game and then have 2 to 3 weeks off before your week 1 game, and all the rust that you thought you might have shook off during the preseason comes right back from being inactive for another 2 weeks. So I'm not mad at the approach of Matt Rhule. Like I said, there's no direct science or perfect formula for how to handle preseason now. So him doing it this way, we'll see how it plays out, and we'll see how that momentum carries from this game going forward. But I don't expect guys like Christian McCaffrey to play. I'd be surprised if DJ Moore played, but I wouldn't be at the same time because it seems like Robbie had an injury he's nursing. Obviously, there's some other receivers that's come back from injury that are nursing some injuries, but I don't expect DJ Moore to play because he had a hell of a training camp, hell of a preseason. He doesn't really need that action. I think he's in midseason form, man. Maybe to get some chemistry with Baker a little bit, but I wouldn't risk injuring DJ Moore because there's a little bit of fluidity at the wide receiver position now with Robbie, TMJ, Higgins, and stuff like that. We have some guys, but your main core guy is DJ Moore. You want to protect him at all costs. It's not going to take a receiver to knock the rust off for the regular season. But I want to know you guys' thoughts. Let me know down below in the comments. How do you feel about the starters playing this final game? How do you feel about Rhule's approach to the preseason by not playing the starters in the second game, but playing them in the third home game to make it like a glorified walkthrough? Let me know down below in the comments. The next topic we have to cover is some unfortunate, sad news. You've probably heard by now, because my news comes out on Monday, but the game happened Friday. Matt Corral suffered an injury. Our third-round draft pick out of Ole Miss suffered an injury to his foot, and it ended up being a Lisfranc injury. And if you've heard this story before about a quarterback getting the Lisfranc injury in New England in the preseason, this is not deja vu, people. This is the same thing that happened to Cam Newton, and it's crazy what the football gods will do and like how things works out. Is just a lot of coincidence, but it just seems crazy at that. What's even more crazy is how some fans are trying to blame Matt Rhule for somehow. I can't even make any logic out of how they could blame Matt Rhule for this. And I'm not even a Matt Rhule defender or truther, but it's getting weird at this point, guys. I mean, I know Rhule is not, what's happened before and some of his decisions are bad, and I'm not a big Rhule fan. I would not be complaining if he did not have success and ended up being fired. But at the same time, it's getting old, guys. It's getting old nitpicking every little thing that he does, and you can't really blame him. Football is a game of contact. Matt Rhule cannot have orchestrated some 300-pound lineman or whoever stepping on Matt Corral's foot and him suffering a Lisfranc injury, ruining his rookie year. Now, let's talk about the implication. I just gave you my opinion a little bit earlier than I wanted to, but it's just been getting crazy when it comes to the chatter that I've been hearing on Twitter and amongst the fans. So I just had to kind of say something about that. But nevertheless, Matt Corral obviously will be done for the season. His rookie year is pretty much over already. Now, will they get surgery? What is the timing of surgery? What's to be determined? They're going to do a little bit more evaluation and get a second opinion on this foot injury. We'll know a lot more Tuesday about the timing of the injury, when it'll happen. Clearly, we know from Cam Newton's standpoint, he should have the surgery. Go ahead and get it out the way. Don't even mess around with it. Stuff like that can linger. Foot injuries are weird. So, and even with J.C. Horn, we see the foot injury. So, 2 consecutive years back to back, we have rookies having foot injuries. The coincidences keep stacking up, and I don't like the way it sounds, but hoping for the best for Matt Corral, because what happens to his future now? And I don't like to project too far forward because I'm focused on this season, but people are looking at it seeing like, okay, is Matt Corral a wasted pick? Because if the team does bad and Rhule gets fired, the new coach is not going to feel any kind of obligation to stick with a third-round quarterback that he didn't draft coming off of injury. Fair enough. But they're also saying if Rhule does good, it's likely going to be because Baker Mayfield. And Baker Mayfield will probably get a contract extension. And they don't think with Matt Corral sitting on the bench, he'll be anywhere close to being able to compete with, one, Baker Mayfield just in general, but two, Baker Mayfield that's coming off of a successful season with the Panthers that was good enough to get him a contract extension. You feel me? Because Baker Mayfield's been in the league 5 years. This is his 5th season, excuse me. To think that Corral could really push, even if they do feel like he's the quarterback of the future, could really push to start over Baker Mayfield, barring any kind of injury to Baker in the future, knock on wood, it's a little far-fetched, especially with Corral not getting any action thus far because of those injuries. So it's a very fluid situation. I understand the dissension and the nervousness and anxiety around the fan base with Matt Corral. Hoping for the best. I don't want to diminish anything because he seems like a good kid, has the right head on the shoulders. He's a competitor. He wants to play, wants to get good, but we never really knew that Matt Corral was going to be the guy or not. The fact that they did a third-round pick on him allowed them to be able to chill and not force him into action when what we've seen based on this preseason action, it's going to take a little bit of time for him to be ready. Not saying that he's going to be a bust or he's not going to be good, but you can tell the game is fast for him and he's going to need some time and reps to get things to slow down for him. And unfortunately, this injury is going to set that process back a little bit more. You guys let me know down below in the comments, how do you feel about Matt Corral's injury and his future with the team? Do you think it's in jeopardy? Do you think that he pretty much going to be a wasted pick like I talked about because some of those reasons? Let me know down below in the comments. The next topic up is obviously the roster being trimmed down by the Tuesday deadline. 2 cuts have been made. There's still 3 more to go. Tackle Austin Pleasance and linebacker Kalon Tolson were cut from the team, waived per se from the team. The team has to get down to 80. Right now they said at 83. So there's going to be 3 more names to get cut before Tuesday at 4 o'clock to make it official. Who knows when it'll happen? It'll probably happen first thing in the morning, so we expect some more news to happen. I'm not sure who it'll be. I will be giving my projection of the 53-man roster at a later date, obviously with that deadline coming up soon and very soon. But the team has to get down to 80, so they cut some depth at linebacker and right tackle. We'll see what happens next. Maybe somebody in the secondary will get cut. I think there's a little bit of surplus of people there, but it's also competitive at the DB position. So stay tuned for the next round of cuts. No huge names here. You probably have heard of Pleasance. I think he was part of one of the tackles that was in that fourth quarter where Corral was in and he got hurt. So don't blame him either. You know what I'm saying? It's football, man. It happens. But nevertheless, you guys let me know down below in the comments how you feel about the cuts and who do you think? Do you think there'll be any surprise cuts coming on? Let me know down below in the comments. Last but not least, we have to talk about something that I posted on Twitter and talked about, but post-game, they talked about Terrace Marshall Jr., and it was Matt Rhule pretty much putting Terrace Marshall Jr. on notice. Not saying that he's going to cut him or he's in trouble or whatever, but he pretty much held his feet to the fire, said, Terrace Marshall, there wasn't some part of any kind of plan because Terrace had been dealing with a hamstring injury during the week. He practiced a little bit. Matt Rhule wanted to and expected him to play. He said he couldn't go. Rhule had some comments about Terrace after the game. Here's a clip.
There was really no plan. I was hoping he'd be able to play. Terrace practiced on Monday, finished it, felt sore the next day, felt like he couldn't go, and so I was hoping he'd be ready for the game, but the medical staff, and he, they worked on it, couldn't get ready for the game. So, we need Terrace to start practicing. We need Terrace to start practicing. We need him to step up. Shai's had a great camp. Higgs had a great camp. We're down some receivers right now. Zylstra's out with a hammy. He's out with a hammy. So we need Terrace to get back because he was having a great camp until he got hurt.
And Matt Rhule rarely has comments like that. I know people like to say he has backhand, throwing guys under the bus, but he's never really directly come out like this and said something like this. He didn't say that he's going to be in trouble to make it cut, but he said that we need Terrace to step up and practice so he could play. He gave Terrace credit, saying that he was pretty much going off in training camp, which from what I saw, it started slow for him, but he kind of picked things up, Terrace did, after the first couple of days. So, and this is a guy that I've been raving about, been hoping for, hoping that he takes that next step because of the skill set that he brings to this team, that I thought that McAdoo could be able to get the best out of him because he's a bigger body wide receiver that we don't have. But the injuries keep stacking up. The injuries are the same reason he fell from a potential first rounder to a second rounder, because of the things that he was dealing with. The team was very patient with him his rookie year and brought him on slow even in the spring up during the season. Limited plays and snaps and receptions last year and targets, and Terrace seemed like he was healthy throughout most of the year. He was just a little bit upset and bothered by it. He didn't really come out and say it, but you could tell his tone about how he answered the question that there was nothing really wrong with him that was keeping him from being on the field. He just didn't get the opportunity. And you can speculate and say that it was a Joe Brady decision to want to get this guy in the second round, and Rhule doesn't really like him, but Rhule's been very complimentary of his talent. But Rhule said it. Other guys have stepped up, and Terrace has not. That's just the nature of the business. Shi Smith is a 6th-round pick, making things happen. Now, Shi obviously has off the field things that he may deal with, and why he fell to the 6th round was a little bit up for debate also. But Higgins, Shi, they have made strides, and this wide receiver room is very competitive, and Terrace just hasn't brought it. And the thing is, Matt Rhule didn't tell any lies. He echoed pretty much what a lot of fans have been saying about Terrace. We're very excited about him. We know he has potential. We've seen him make plays. He just hasn't been on the field to get opportunities and to be able to give himself opportunities. So I thought it was fair to call out Terrace, but we'll see what happens because, of course, these fake meme pages on Twitter have now floated out that the team has received calls Hasn't really confirmed it. The comments were off on this tweet, so I wouldn't put any stock into it until you see any of the Panther sources, not named me, confirm or deny that this is true. But this is what happens when you put comments out there. The Sharks smell blood in the water. People may come fishing in this type of news space that we're in now when it comes to sports. Any of these fake pages with over a couple thousand followers with a cool logo is going to put out some rumors, and people are going to feel like it's true. But I'm not going to buy too deep into it. The Panthers are too invested in this guy. Second-round pick, not to mention they traded a couple times around in their round to be able to get this guy. So I don't think they're giving up on him so easy, especially with all that potential, just for him to go to some other team and just ball out and make the Panthers regret it. They already been there, done that with Denzel Perryman. I don't see them trying to do that again. But you guys let me know down below in the comments how you feel about Terrace Marshall and how you feel about the comments Rhule had about him. And do you think the trade talks are true? Just because they've been giving calls doesn't mean that the Panthers are shopping him around. Do you believe there's any kind of truth to that? Do you think that where there's smoke, there's fire? Let me know down below in the comments. But without further ado, that is the news for this week. You guys let me know down below in the comments if I missed anything, how you feel about everything. Let's chop it up down below. Let's break bread and talk about it, man. But without further ado, I'm Aaron Duncan signing off with the Necessary Blunt Sports Talk. I'll see you next time. Peace.